sick of the crazy? Are you tired of the lies? Maybe it's time to get ready for the Republic of the Real, because it's about to get real. Welcome to the Republic of the Real. When you live in a world where so little is real, it's about time that some of us start getting real loud. Real courageous. And helping people understand how it is that we got here so we can get real busy changing the trajectory of this country. So it's pretty clear when you look around to see how crazy all aspects of the world that we live in is getting. Across the 7 spheres and around the world. We live in a time where uncertainty has overtaken expectations of certainty. We live in a world that has become overcome by its fear, confusion, rage, anger, hatred, avarice, hubris. We live in a world where it seems like everyone is turning against everyone else. We're living in a world where you are watching people do what is right in their own eyes. And such a world brings about a world of chaos, a world of confusion, a world of insanity. It is a world on the cusp of the old dying and the new being birthed. So what would that be? What do you think that's going to look like? What do you think the world is going to be like? During the birthing process we're entering into, and after, what do you think it's going to take for us to get to that point? What will be the consequences rendered as the old falls away and the new rises? What will it look like for people and for the nations? So I was looking at the news today, which I rarely do. I actually ignore the news as much as I can. And what I saw was just how terrible the flooding, storms have been all over Western Europe and throughout parts of Asia. Now, the constant drumbeat on this is it's global climate change. Well, of course it is. What do you think we're entering into? Part of the birthing process is a change, a restoration of what was before it got polluted by what is. Now, you can say that is due all to human beings. And that is what's causing climate change. The crazy weather. Well, that's partially true, but not in the way that you're thinking. You're thinking that our physical reality of it, right? And it's true, there is an impact on the biosphere, particularly by emerging nations and by large nations like China, who likes to blame everybody else and wants everybody else to carry the weight for the bubble that they live in. But you also are in a much larger meta pattern, a meta cycle. And that cycle is one which is definitively one that is it throughout our entire solar system, as well as the broader Milky Way galaxy that you're in and universe in general. You see, you don't generally think of it in those terms. We're very myopic as a species. And we're very myopic as individuals. But you do exist in a much bigger reality, both within the physical temporal reality and in the overarching infinite reality which it sits in like a bubble. So it is our natural inclinations when we see things occurring to put them into a frame of reference that is in that myopathy. And that simply has not worked well for humanity, having done that over and over and over throughout our history. It also has been taken advantage of over and over and over again by unprincipled people, ideologies, nation states, empires, and spiritual powers and principalities in the metasphere. See, people don't like to talk about that. Every generation thinks it's more evolved than all the others that came before it. Just like all the empires that rose and fell all thought that they were impervious. They all thought they were impervious to the very things that allowed them to rise over those that came before them. And then, having not learned the lessons, actually rerun it in their own avarice and hubris. Right? That is the cycle of human history. You can deny it all you want. You can pretend like it doesn't exist. And you can pretend like you yourself are terminally unique in it. And your generation is terminally unique in it. However, that would be a lie. And you would be engaging in the very thing that you are trying to deny, and thereby creating the very conditions that I'm trying to warn you about. So when we look at the times we're in, one could say that we are ruled in a very fleshy kind of way by our new Holy Trinity, the me, myself, and I, the super subjective. Now, in reality, that may seem like a new thing, but it's actually been human history all along. Again, people do not learn from history, and they don't learn from their own mistakes. And as people are like that, so too it is for nations. See, nothing new is under the sun, including all the machinations and intrigues thereof that drive that cycle around and around and around like a millstone hung around every generation's neck. But we are in a rather unique time in that we are in a time of convergence of many, many trends, many, many things, historical patterns and trends, converging with natural trends and patterns at a unique time and space and history. And that's what I mean when I talk about something is being birthed. And a birthing process is very painful. All of you ladies out there that have had children, I'm sure you could give a lot of the men a lesson on that, right? So, when you think about the world that you are in, think about applying some of those ideas, some of those concepts, some of the things that you've dealt with, right? And if you're a woman, being a mother, right? Birthing. And apply that to the time period that we're in as nation states, as peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations, right? And as the collective of humanity, existing in this time and place in the universe, in our mortal coils. You see, it's going to be painful. Every birth is. Every birth is painful for a period of time. But you see, again, that's where the myopathy kicks in, right? We don't want to feel any pain. We don't want to risk anything. We don't want to suffer, right? Well, who does? But sometimes if you are going to get to something better, you're going to actually move into something that's better for you. The process of saying goodbye to the old, letting go of it, is a necessary thing, and it can be painful. It can be very difficult. It's difficult when we have to do that with those that we love. We have to say goodbye, let go. And we are in a cycle here, right? Individual, life cycle, right? We're born, we live it out, and then we die. That's the temporal reality. Now, though a lot of people believe that there's nothing after this, they can't actually prove that with anything, but they sure like to spend a great deal of their lives trying to prove that people that believe opposite of them, right, are fools for believing there's something more than this temporal reality. Now, that seems like a kind of a waste of one's temporal life if you truly do not believe that there's nothing, that there's nothing beyond this, right? Why would you spend so much of your energy and your time trying to convince people of what you believe that believe different than you? I mean, that's kind of focusing on the very thing you say doesn't exist, yet it's giving you so much trouble that you somehow obsess on it. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, right? Because we all really know that's bullshit. I mean, if we're real about it, we all know that that's a game people play. So what I'm going to attempt to do in these Republic of the Real talks is to get real honest with you about the reality of what we're dealing with here in the world, using the 7 spheres of society as kind of a guide, right? I'm going to go around the horn on each of these, and there's 7 days in the week, so I'm going to try to take each of those 7 spheres and do one or more and apply that to things going on in our current events, while trying to connect dots for you, or help you think about it so you can connect the dots. Because when you live in a world that is so fake, when you live in a world like we do that seems like it's a dream state or a horror movie or whatever it is that your present perceptions of it are, sometimes it's difficult to even believe that anything real still exists. But I assure you, if it didn't exist, you wouldn't be struggling with that question. And we're going to dive into why that is. And we're going to dive into how those questions and those perceptions aggregate across the 7 spheres of society and create a reality that explains why it is I tell you, as it is for people, so too it is for nations.
Box of China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
I hit strings, but now I'm free. There are no strings on me.
You know, we're playing this game here. You take a word or a sentence somebody says, and you throw a gotcha at them.
People should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it, because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask.
I mean, masks are very important.
Wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet.
At minimum, wear a mask. Just put a cloth mask over, which actually here and here and here, where you could get leakage in.
But it's not providing the perfect protection that people think.
So again, minimal, at least one mask, likely a double ply type of mask.
So if you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense.
Maybe I should put 2 masks on. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's no data that indicates that that is going to make a difference.
There are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
In order to avoid the acquisition and transmission of this virus, which is highly transmissible, you should have uniform wearing of masks. When you go outside, almost any circumstance, you don't need to wear masks. And you wear a mask literally at all times that you're on the outside. When you go outside, almost any circumstance, you don't need to wear masks.
But wearing masks into 2022, Doctor, do you still stand by that?
Neil, that was taken, come on, let's get serious about this. That was taken totally out of context.
Do you think Americans will still be wearing masks, for example, in 2022?
You know, I think it is possible that that's the case.
It is conceivable that we may be having to wear masks in 2022, of saying people who are vaccinated should continue to wear masks.
So, Dr. Fauci, that brings up the question of once you do have this vaccine and you're 2 weeks after your second shot, where and why should you still be wearing masks and for how long?
So I'm vaccinated, but if I'm in an area where there is a lot of infection, I still could get infected. It's very unlikely that I'm going to get seriously ill, but I still could get infected.
You're telling everybody to wear a mask. We're not spreading the infection. Isn't it just theater?
No, it's
you had
not.
The vaccine and you're wearing 2 masks. Isn't that theater?
No, that's not. Here we go again with the theater. Let's get down to the facts. Masks are not theater. Masks are protective. And we
have immunity there, theater. If you already have immunity, you're wearing a mask to give comfort to others. You're not wearing a mask because of any sign.
I totally disagree with you.
If you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask outside. It would be a very unusual situation.
Dr. Fauci is a truth teller. He's science, knowledge, evidence, data. And that's what we have to have.
But in general, I have been really quite consistent in what I've said. So when we talk about wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, doing this or not doing that, we like it to be based on evidence and data. And that's the way I have guided anything I've said for now the last 40 years.